spoke to over 100, 150 investors. A lot of them passed along the way. Again, the bigger we grow, the more challenged you will be as an entrepreneur towards achieving on certain KPI or metrics, or making sure you can hit your right audience, that you're building the right product for that audience, and so on. So hey, my name is Sébastien Borget. I'm the COO and co-founder of the Sandbox, as well as the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance. I've been an entrepreneur for 16 years, together with my business partner Arthur Madrid. The last company we co-founded together is the Sandbox. It's a decentralized virtual world where anyone can make 3D assets and all sorts of experiences, more social, more immersive, and truly own all the content they create, having the ability to exchange it, use it in virtual world, or monetize it the way they want. So, how I actually met Arthur Madrid is a very interesting story. As far as I remember, I've always been a geek and early adopter of new technologies. So since I've been a teenager, I bought the new console on the first day out and testing products. At the end of the day, I think that led me to always be curious on how those products were made. And that's why I chose to go into engineering studies. So I went to an engineering school in France in network and telecommunication. And as part of those studies, the last semester was an exchange program here in Hong Kong at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. At the same time, I was also an open source developer. So in my leisure time, I was coding programs specifically around the BitTorrent and peer-to-peer technology. The very first startup of Arthur in France was around peer-to-peer and BitTorrent. So he contacted me while I was in Hong Kong and preferred me to start working with him, consulting and reviewing some aspects and tech aspects of his startup. We got to know each other, and as soon as I finished the exchange program, I worked at his startup back in Paris as an intern. I finished my study and I joined after working with him as a COO, Director of Operation, doing project management, and progressively learning more and more until I think I could say I've become more of an entrepreneur, co-founding other startups together. Right, so that first startup was using peer-to-peer technology, enabling video on-demand website and sports website to share high-quality videos at a fraction of the cost using peer-to-peer. That company was acquired by a CDN network in France, and together, after that, we co-founded another startup which was more focused around enabling users to upload their photos, their videos, their music online in the cloud and stream them from anywhere. Even before Spotify, even before Netflix, people could access their media files from just any device. This was successful. We had tens of thousands of users paying a monthly subscription for unlimited storage. And we sold that company a few years later for the technology. And together in 2011, we co-founded our mobile game studio called Pixel. That was a mobile game studio focused on free-to-play games and character story-driven games. And that's how we actually started the Sandbox, originally as a mobile game back then in 2011. We always had this idea that we wanted to empower people to become creators. I always wanted to make video games. And I also saw how hard it was to actually make video game on consoles back in the day. You needed large teams, multi-million-dollar budgets, the access to the hardware, the development kit was very restricted, the framework was closed. But once the smartphone, the iPhone and Android phones came out, it was possible again, that dream to become a creator from your garage, just one or two person could build their own game and share it, publish it on their own. And so I said that was the right time to jump into the space, launch our game studio, focusing on these mobile devices. And even further, I said look, how could we just enable anyone to make their own games without needing to know any kind of programming skills? And that's what I found On smartphone, one of the exciting features was really the touch screen. The idea that by the touch of your fingers, things were reacting under your eyes. It adds kind of this like magic feeling. And so what if you could create games just by touching the screen? And that's what really the first Sandbox was about. Like, you touch the screen, you drop and play with elements from the periodic table, and they were reacting right in front of you, following laws of physics, electronics, etc. And you could share those creations to an online gallery where others could actually try, play, and iterate over it. It was very fun, and it grew into a large success. We had overall 40 million installs over 8 years life of that game. We made many updates, more than 60, adding new elements, new ways to create games, etc. But along the way, we also struggled to keep our creator engaged for many years. People enjoy creating for days, for weeks. They spent quite some time, but over time they were leaving, even though we were like featuring their profile, giving them social fame, etc. What we found is like we needed something more. Like all the content they brought, over 70 million creation, it was contributing to the revenue of our company, and yet themselves as creators, they couldn't receive any portion of that revenue that they drove. Why is, even though we wanted to do so, like you couldn't share a part of the revenue with the users. That's not possible on the App Store or the Google Play Store. There's no way to really reach to the users like that. So we struggled until around 2017, we found about blockchain technology. Again, I was exploring, testing the first blockchain game by then, called CryptoKitties. It was a very simple game, basically nothing original about it, like just breeding virtual cats. But two things stood up. One is the fact that those cats, you actually bought them not from the game developer, but from other users. And the fact that you didn't buy those cats in the currency of the game and in the game itself, but you bought it on the marketplace outside OpenSea and using a currency called Ethereum, like a cryptocurrency. And that's where, at that moment of time, I say, wow, that's very powerful. That's never seen in video games actually before. And what if instead of buying virtual cats, you could just buy the creations of other users? And then that really started the idea that we should build the Sandbox using that technology, combining user-generated content and NFTs, and like starting from scratch, rebuild it entirely. This time not as a game, but more as a platform. And that's how we've been evolving Sandbox since then, as a platform, 3D, multi-platform, multiplayer, that involve blockchain and NFTs at the core. And we've been quite successful at it. Today we count more than 5 million users with a wallet. We are one of the leading decentralized applications, and we've brought in more than 400 major brands from around the world, and also a thriving ecosystem of more than 230 studios in this ecosystem. So actually, as I was already in the video game industry, we met quite a few times with Animoca Brands, which is a game studio from Hong Kong. By then, Animoca Brands was a company mostly focused on licensing major license IPs, characters, to bring them to make video games. They had a portfolio of 300 major IPs, and they also had this expertise on localizing video game and publishing them on the Chinese, the Japanese, the Korean market, which were like top markets on the free-to-play gaming industry. So the Sandbox was really strong in US, in Europe, but we were not able yet to reach out to that Asia side. So we contacted them, we met them across the years, starting 2014, 2016, to have some discussion around publishing. We ended up not working together, but we built a relationship. And one day I met Robbie Young, the CEO of Animoca Brands by then, in a conference in Gamescom, where we started to discuss what are we looking at, what is our next things in our roadmap. And we both started to talk about blockchain and how exciting it was for gaming, because I already thought about building Sandbox on the blockchain, and they were actually publishing CryptoKitties in China, the first blockchain game. So coincidentally, we found like, right, we're both looking at the same thing and we're probably pioneers, like very few yet in this space. Let's talk more. And we saw really an alignment at this moment of time, and we decided that it was best for the two companies to join forces and for my game studio to be acquired by Animoca Brands, which happened in 2018. I only came to meet Yatsu at that moment of time, because Yatsu was based in Hong Kong, and I didn't meet him at that moment until we went further into the acquisition discussion, and progressively Yatsu became more of the public face of the company, and we have now both been growing in the space, supporting for adoption of Web3. Sandbox and Animoca brand having this win-win relationship, as the more Sandbox became successful, the more Animoca also benefit from it, and vice versa. So when we got acquired by Animoca Brands, we became 100% wholly owned by them. So it's only at the moment of time where we spin it out, Sandbox, from the game studio, that we look to raise money with new investors, which happened in July 2019. We raised $4.5 million with Square Enix through Global Venture and Hashed, leading crypto investor in Korea. That set our DNA deeply rooted in Asia, focusing in Hong Kong, Korea, and Japan more specifically. However, fundraising wasn't necessarily an easy thing. I remember it took us several months, close to a year, and we had a lot of opposition. Even though this is our third startup, we've been proving that we were able to ship games, we know how to make video games, we know how to build products and be quite successful as entrepreneurs. People didn't really believe, for many various reasons, that NFT was necessary in video game industry. What if a game like Minecraft or Roblox would implement it, etc. They didn't understand that at the deep core, the necessity for ensuring that the creator economy is built on the right basis, with true digital ownership for the creator and the players, and that we could be one of the main actors in the space. That was fine. We continued to advance, we build a product, we grow a community of creators, onboarded them for the right reason on the platform, make them understood progressively about what is an NFTs and why creating on Sandbox is actually more empowering them, and always step by step succeeding our land sales, succeeding launching the different beta of our products, announcing more and more partnerships. That led towards our second round of fundraising, our Series B, in November 2021, where we raised $94 million with SoftBank. That was also a long race. I believe we spoke to over 150 investors. A lot of them passed along the way. Again, the bigger we grow, the more challenged you will be as an entrepreneur towards achieving on certain KPI or metrics, or making sure you can hit your right audience, that you're building the right product for that audience, and so on. Which is fine. We just kept on delivering, focusing on our community, on the creators first. And today, I believe everyone can see that Sandbox is still a very active product. We have a largely engaged community and ecosystem. Every week we are announcing new brands and partners from many regions of the world. That the land sales that we curate or the avatar sale that we launch with official partners are always selling out. So we are very, because of having been very focused of the product, the focus on showcasing the utility and not being attached necessarily to just what the criticism that people could have, but showcasing the model that we believe in our vision from day one. We've been very focused on entertainment first. So we've been looking at bringing partners, and because we've been in gaming for the past 10 years, we already had some of like IP partnership before. We partnered back in the day with Snoopy, with Garfield, with Adam's Family, or with Ghostbusters, Shrek, and Pac-Man. So that led us to think like we need to bring brands in Sandbox, and we're starting with entertainment, like sports, music, fashion, gaming, of course. The very first brand that we brought were Care Bears, as well as Walking Dead. It took us a bit of time. Actually, I think the first brand and partnership took us close to 12 months, because by then, like, the brand didn't know about Web3. There are no team internally that like led their strategy and explained to like the managers and the deciders what it is. So we had to do a lot of heavy lifting, education, showcasing, building even before we could announce. That's what we did. And so the first partnership took us roughly a year. Then the second one took us 6 months. And progressively, by snowball effect, it accelerated a bit. We see then like partners like Adidas or Warner Music or even Gucci became more and more interested as well into the Web3 space, into the metaverse space, and seeing Sandbox making those announcements, but more than announcements, seeing Sandbox showcasing already like the utility of the NFTs, having concrete experience to play, and giving the ability by the team to try things out already. It's been really helpful to bring those brands like Adidas, like Warner Music, like Gucci as key partners. Also, myself and Animoca Brands and my co-founder Archer as well, we spoke at various events and conferences globally. We also helped the top management from those brands to understand Web3, explaining in like board meetings or workshops what is the metaverse, what is our approach to the metaverse, what makes Sandbox different, the fact that we're focused on user-generated content, that we are a creative platform, that we have all that gamification as well, it's part of our core DNA. So they better understand the possibilities and how it can benefit their brand to engage either with this new Gen Z or their existing audience to discover and co-create creatively their presence in the metaverse. And that's why today we count more than 400 partners globally. I believe it's the result of that long effort and that commitment to have product, concrete showcases, and be very down to earth as well about it.